Hey guys, Kiel here, you're watching Gamer. Welcome back. Now, I'm going to discuss something that is very important for us gamers and especially game collectors. Because there is something we gamers almost never talk about, and it's very important to keep your game collection alive. And that is disc rot. Yep, CD based games or DVD based games can actually rot like fruit or something, you know. They have a life cycle of themselves. Yes, a DVD or a CD won't last forever. One day it's gonna degrade, the data on it will be lost, and they call it disc rot. Now, you can say, well, my CDs will last forever, like, maybe, like, not really. They do have a life cycle of, they don't really know yet, because CDs haven't been like, that long around. Like, the manufacturers say, well, a CD can last 25 years, or 40 years, or 50 years, or 70 years. They don't really know. But this disc rot actually exists. And how can you check your games for disc rot is if you hold your CD with the side where it reads the data up to a light source, and then you look at it, and if on that CD you see a small white dot that the light can penetrate the CD or the disc, that's what we call disc rot. And the sad thing about disc rot is the disc is gonna die. And you can't like prevent it with, like, you know, some stores who do like the scratch removal process when the disc reads bad, and you know, then they do something over the disc so it has a different surface. You know, you see it like, oh, you know the scratch removal process they do. Well, that's not gonna work with disc rot. If your CD or disc has disc rot, it's dying. It's time to just throw it away. And that's, for a collector like me and probably you watching this video, a very sad thing. And eventually it will happen to all of us. And that sucks. But the purpose of this video is how to prevent disc rot on your game collection for as long as we possibly can by doing certain steps to store your discs. And like I said, if you're like, well, my discs are very old and it doesn't really matter because, hey, they will I haven't had any problems with them for years. Good for you, but still it can happen. And let's just put this in perspective. Like if you say, well, in 20 years, that's a long time, you know. If they say discs can last 25 years, 25 years is a long time. Yes, it is. 25 years is a long time. But I want to be able to play my games 50 years from now. And let's just put that in perspective. Like the 5th generation console generation, with of course, you know, Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1, Sega Saturn, we saw the rise of disc games. The PlayStation 1 was released in 1995. Today we're 2015. That's already 20 years. Yeah, I know, I'm getting old, so are you. But to put that, like, to show you something, in our family, my brother got his PlayStation 1 in 1996. And of course he bought games for it, and also I did. And I bought this game, Air Combat, brand new in 1996. So that means next year, with more than a month away, this game is gonna turn 20 years old. Yeah. And if in those 20 years you store your disc games bad, you can already get broken games or disc rot. And this is a real thing, people. Unfortunately it is. So I'm just gonna give you some advice or tips how to store your disc games so you can prevent disc rot and keep your disc having a very long life, extending the longevity of your disc game. That is the purpose of this video. That's what we're going to discuss. Now, first I'm going to talk about something where I and you have no control over whatsoever when keeping discs in your collection. And that is the manufacturing process of the disc itself. That is completely out of our hands, because that happens in multiple factories over the world where they manufacture the disc, and the disc is actually built out of different kind of layers. You have a plastic layer, an aluminum layer, a coating. Different layers are pressed together, data is put on it, and that's how you make a disc with the different layers. But not every factory that makes discs has the same quality of making sure the layers stick together. And that's the biggest problem for us as game collectors, that the layers will loosen and then we're gonna get disc rot, and that sucks, and that's out of our hands, unfortunately. Oops. So I'm gonna discuss what's in our hands and what we can do to prevent disc rot in our game collection. The first thing you'll have to do is, when you store your disc games, keep them out of sunlight. And this is a common mistake many of us gamers do. Like in their living room, they have an open closet with their entire game collection to display, because of course they're proud of it. They're gamers, I'm proud of my collection, awesome. But not so good. Because if you have a room with a window and you have an open closet and sunlight can hit that open closet and hit your discs, even if they're in a casing, they will affect your disc. The ultraviolet lights will penetrate the case and will affect the outer layer, the bonding layer of your disc. Actually, ultraviolet lights debonds layers on your discs. So sunlight is the disc's worst enemy. Keep it away from sunlight. See what I have? Closed closets in a room where there's no windows, where I store my disc games. And that's important because sunlight will ruin your outer layer. That keeps all the layers stick together. So that's one thing we can do. The second is, don't scratch your discs. This of course is a no-brainer, but still. Discs I have bought new in my life have no scratching on them. None. Because I take care of my discs. But of course, if there are games you're interested in that you missed when they were brand new and you have to go hunting for them, like used, for like PlayStation 1, 2, original Xbox, Dreamcast, consoles that their life cycle has already ended, then you have a problem. Because unfortunately lots of gamers have no respect for their disc, and if you buy used games, they're scratched all over the place. Like they've herded sheep with them or something. It's insane. I've never made one single scratch on the disc I have bought brand new, but apparently other people just don't care. But it's important to keep your discs scratch free. And here's why. In all the layers, there's one layer of aluminium. Aluminium reacts to oxygen and humidity in the air. oxidized, which makes the layers will debond and your data will become, of course, unreadable. And then you got the little white dots if you hold your disk to the light called disk rot, because the aluminum reacts to air and especially the humidity in the air. So scratches are your worst enemy also, together with sunlight, because then sunlight can also penetrate the disk much deeper to debond all the layers of your disks. So that sucks. No sunlight, no scratches. Now, the second thing is, the third thing, sorry. When you store your disks, make sure they're in a room with kind of a constant temperature. If you store them in like a basement, like some gamers do, they rebuild their basement for like a man cave thing, you know, all their consoles, all their discs. It's awesome, no sunlight, really cool. They keep their games scratch free, but then the basement will become very cold in winter and more hot in the summer in some cases. Well, not the basement, some guys use their attic, and in an attic you got cold in the winter and really hot in the summer, and that fluctuation with temperature is not good for your disk. Every material in this planet shrinks when it's cold, expands when it's hot. Also your disks. But all the layers of your disk expand and shrink different from each other because they're made from different materials. Again, a problem for debonding your disk. Also, in a basement or in an attic, especially in a basement, humidity can be a problem. Like basements tend to be more, have more humidity in the air than a normal room. So they're like manufacturers and specialists in the technology business have done tests with discs to see how long they last. And one thing they recommend is keep your discs stored in a room where the temperature is almost constant or not very much fluctuations. And the ideal temperature room is 25 degrees Celsius or 77 degrees Fahrenheit with a humidity of 50%. That should be the ideal situation to store your games. My room doesn't have 25 degrees in here. I have a small fluctuation here, and humidity I try to keep under control with like a small machine I have that sucks all the water out of the air, so I'm trying to keep humidity under 50% because this is actually a garage, so we all have to think of something to keep all the water out of the air, but that's also a problem for us collectors. The fourth thing is, this is maybe gonna sound like really, but bear with me here. If you store your games, usually everyone, especially with DVD cases, store them vertically. Make a cool collection. And that's good, they have to be vertically. But sometimes I see guys having special closet or holders so they can store their games horizontally, so they can read the title of the game much easier than holding their head to see when they're stored normal like you would a DVD. This is a problem. You have to store your discs vertically. Why? Because if you keep your disc horizontally for years without touching it, our biggest enemy then is gravity. Yeah. You know how discs in cases are being held with the middle part and you can rotate them because the middle part is keeping the disc, so the disc is kind of floating in the case. Means the outer core rims of your disc are actually a millimeter or something floating over the case. So then if you store them horizontally for years, gravity is going to slightly bend those outer layers downwards. Yes, I know this is far-fetched, but this is a real thing, people. It's gonna bend it a little bit, and if you then have the disc who is a little bit bended, you stick it in your console and things start to read the disc, you might create scratches. And then again we have scratches, UV light can get in, humidity can get in, all the stuff that's bad for us will happen when your disc is a little bit bended by gravity. I know you're like, really? But think about it. It happens. I've never experienced it because all my discs are put vertically, but apparently I've known a guy who has stored a PlayStation 1 game horizontally for years without touching it, and we're like, let's pop it in our PlayStation, and the outer rim would scratch all over the place. Like, what the hell's wrong with it? Because it was a bended disc. I know, it sucks, but it's a real thing. The other thing is, we all know magnetic fields aren't good for your hard drive. Also, a magnet or magnetic fields ain't good for your disk. Keep the magnetic fields as far away from your disk as possible. And you're like, yeah, of course, I'm not going to put a magnet on my disk. Duh, we don't put magnets on our disk. But if you have big power cables running right next to the closet where you store your games, that could potentially be a problem, because every cable where electricity flows through, a magnetic field will come around the cable. Even if it's very small, it doesn't matter, it's a magnetic field around every electricity cable. So just to be sure, keep all the cables as far away from our disks as possible. Another thing is, I couldn't really find a lot of stuff on the internet about this, but still I heard an IT guy at my job telling about it. When we used to go onto the internet, we had a hard-wired cable on every device to go on the internet. Now, of course, in 2015 we all use wireless internet, Wi-Fi. Duh. Problem for your disks who are stored. A Wi-Fi signal can penetrate walls. It will be very slow, data will not read well on your laptop or whatever, but in the end, if you have Wi-Fi in your house, you're just gonna stand outside, you have still some sort of signal, even if it's a weak one, it's a Wi-Fi signal. So store your games as far away from the Wi-Fi hotspot as possible. Those signals penetrate your disk. I know. No long-term investigation has gone on to see what the effect are the Wi-Fi signals on the disk, but a disk is a fragile thing. It can't stand sunlight, it can't stand oxygen, it can't stand heat or too cold or humidity or magnetism or gravity. So let's just be sure to keep the Wi-Fi hotspots as far away from our disks as possible, just as a preventive measure. And that's about it. Yeah, I know. In the end, we'll all be kind of like screwed over, because no matter how much you like physical copies of games, disc rot is a real thing, and in the end it will all get us. So with these couple of pro tips, I hope we can give our discs a very long time, so we can enjoy those games for a very long time, and even in our lifetime, and maybe even in our kids' or grandkids' their lifetime. Because there's a lot of dispute going on between manufacturers. Like back in the day when CDs were introduced, they were like, well, CDs will last you 25 years. And then later on, when the technology got better, they say, well, CDs are going to last you 40 years. Like I've mentioned, this is almost 20 years old. If it's true and a disc will only last 25 years, we're all screwed. Then your entire PlayStation 1 collection will be, and your Saturn collection will be for the garbage. Like people have reported that their Sega CDs for the Genesis or Mega Drive, you know, the add-on, the Mega CD or Genesis CD, you know, they were CD-based games, the first of their kind. And they're showing off disc rot now as we speak, because they're over 20 years old. Of course, technology has become better, the manufacturer of the disc has become better. Now the companies who make discs say a CD-based disc will last you 50 years in ideal conditions. So if you store your discs bad, the life expectancy of your disc is going to go down. So that's why it's very important to store our discs proper. DVDs are apparently a little more stronger than CDs. They last a little longer according to specialists in the business. And they say, well, a DVD will last you 50 to 70 years. Again, in ideal conditions. And they also say, well, the next thing, Blu-ray is even more better. It will last you 100 years in ideal conditions. So I hope that with these things in mind, me and you can keep your discs as going as long as we can. And if the first generation of disc games will last us maybe 40 years, I hope we all get to that 40-year mark with our discs. Because this is already halfway there. And that's frightening. That sucks. Big time. I had a gaming friend who was like, well, it doesn't matter if I have disc rot, my collection is worth very much because I have like very rare games. I have like Symphony of the Night for my PlayStation 1 and Metal Gear for my PlayStation 1 and Silent Hill and I don't know, all like rare or more valuable games as they think. But I was like, dude, if there's disc rot on it and you can't play them, they're worthless. He's like, oh well, but people collect them and never play them again, and so they keep their value. I'm like, no dude, if the game don't work, it doesn't have any value anymore. Doesn't matter how rare the game is. If it has disc rot, it's a goner. You have to just throw it in the trash. There's no reason for you to keep it. But that's a discussion some collectors have. But no. Let's just all hope our discs have a very long lifetime. So yeah, all I can say is enjoy while you can and keep playing. Bye.